Hello and welcome to Street View. When shooting the streets, we must of course pay particular attention to the whole scene in our viewfinder, making sure that we've got everything in the frame that we want to capture. No surprises there. But are we paying enough attention to the positioning of the human element in the picture? After all, their presence could be the vital element in that great shot you were looking for. In this video, I want to talk about how we can always try to capture our characters at the right place in the frame, making sure their presence is not only an important focal point, but that it delivers the right amount of impact. I often try to isolate people in my pictures because it helps to heighten the sense of solitude and detachment that I often like. When looking at a scene, one of the first things that I'll think about is where in the composition a person might feature, and what might be their best position in terms of the amount of impact they can deliver. If it's the minimalist look I'm going for, the presence of a human figure will be of high importance, and their position will be critical in balancing the space, being an obvious focal point and adding the required amount of interest. Here, the central position of the figure anchors the scene and gives more solidity to the grid-like background beyond. In this picture, the sheer weight of the shadow area is the perfect backdrop for the figure with his flowing robe. Again, the central point of the picture is the best position for him, as it accentuates his fragile-like appearance. The sky and foreground areas help to complete the frame, as they reveal the diagonal lines of the shadow, which help to lead the eye to our focal point. If, on the other hand, a scene is busier with much more going on, any human presence might appear as an additional factor playing a more minor role. Careful framing will hopefully mean they won't become lost or be too weak. Subframing is another device I like to use, as street photography is always well provided for in this respect. There are so many ways in which you can use things to frame someone. Here, the Millennium Bridge in London was the host for a bit of drama. I stood slightly below it and watched as people made their way across from the north side. The partly concealed sun and foreboding sky adds a little menace to the picture, enough for it to be used on this crime novel jacket at least. In this image, if the figure was in the centre of the triangle, then I don't think it would have worked so well. The negative space in both the dark and light areas is quite important, and the dark line which the figure is juxtaposed to helps give a feeling of motion. She might have felt a little static in the middle of the picture. I sometimes think that the people moving through our urban spaces often have a well-trodden route that they like to follow, and they do it without even thinking. Like a choreographer has put together a sequence of movements and directions for them. It all seems to work with the utmost precision. This means that it's sometimes possible to anticipate their movements and capture them where they'll make the most impact in your shots. The key to making this image work was to capture someone in each spot at the same time. The chap folding his arms at ground level was waiting around, so I had him in position, and there were plenty of people coming up the stairs, so there was no problem there. The tricky one was the archway on the left. I desperately needed someone in that window to complete the picture. People were moving past it and I was shooting with a continuous shutter, but I kept missing it. It took me a frantic minute or so, but it suddenly fell into place. The lesson here being that if you see the possibility of something happening and you give it enough time, you may be well rewarded. Here, the centre split of dark and light attracted me to the space, and as I stood and watched people moving through it, I recognised the opportunity to make the scene work. The near-complete silhouette on the left-hand side of the picture was quite nice in itself, but I noticed that the light was being caught by those passing on the right-hand side of the picture too. It took me a while to get the right result, and the guy turning towards the camera is a nice moment. It does look a little like a conveyor belt of movement, going back to what I was saying about choreography and a sequence of directed movements. As I said before, the use of negative space can be such a powerful visual device in your pictures. In this picture, I love the way the strip lights disappear into the dark tunnel. not leaving the eye anywhere except the darkness, but on its own this has no real visual interest. I knew the space would only work with the key element on the left-hand side of the image entering the tunnel. So yes, someone about to disappear into the space is fine, but I thought to make it really work, it needed to be a figure of interest. The man with the spotty dog works quite nicely. We have the whiteness of its coat and the spots of black, a fitting contrast to the dashes of light from the strip lights and road markings. You may have found a scene that you want to use, but feel that it might be difficult getting some human interest in it effectively. I know this is something that I have a problem with from time to time. In this scene I could see the attraction of the light and shade, but wasn't sure how I could get something a little more from it. I tried with a few passers-by, but it lacked punch and needed a real focal point. The shopping bag provided the extra ingredient as it caught the light in just the right place. It's important to sometimes stand and observe a scene and see how the people passing through it can affect it, and perhaps turn something that looks rather flat into a more vibrant capture. All of these images are the result of thinking about how the human element can be placed most effectively in the frame, in a way that will create the most impact. Whether you're using people in your pictures as the main focus or just as a prop, it's important to carefully consider their position in the frame, as it can make or break an image and be the difference between an average street picture and one that you're really pleased with. Thanks for watching and see you next time. To see more of my work, visit my website at www.rupertvandervelde.co.uk and check out my book Fine Art Street Photography, available at Amazon.